Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and it's time for a tour video. Every month we do a tour around the three plots that I do the planning for. So I plan my plot, obviously, my wife's plot and one of my daughter's plots, Jennie. And Jennie's broken her knee, so we're also just doing a bit of the work on her plot as well at the moment. So yeah, it's a lovely time of year actually. Everything is getting quite relaxing, and of course we've got everything, all the beds pretty much replanted now. We've got a few little bits and pieces still to go in. The broad beans have still got to go in. We haven't quite got the garlic in yet, but all the beds are prepared and ready. And we've got a few crops that are just finishing, things like calabrese and things like that, and obviously those beds will get replanted soon. But yeah, it's a lovely position, and it's kind of strange in a way to think about the fact that, you know, the food that we've got in the ground now, and we're about, I think actually 20th of October, that's going to last us for almost 7 months. It's quite amazing to think about that, you know, that basically, you know, just a few weeks of work in September and October can give you enough food to eat for such a long period of time. And we're lucky that we have a lot of undercover space intentionally, you know, because, you know, being self-sufficient, it's just really the only way to have a really rich and varied diet for such a long period of time. And a varied diet is very important to us. I mean, obviously it's just nice to eat, but because pretty much all of the veg and most of the seasonal fruit that we eat comes from the allotment, you know, we want to make sure that we're getting a very wide range of different plant types, because that means a wide range of different nutrients. And also because we're eating just from the same 250 square meters of ground, we need to make sure that there's a lot of nutrients in that ground. So we put a lot of emphasis on things like seaweed meal, some rock dust in the early days, you know, horse manure, cow manure, and you know, just mushroom compost, as well as our own compost. But I mean, obviously our own compost is just recycling nutrients that were already in the ground, and being on very sandy soil which leaches nutrients, yeah, we add a lot of extra amendments to the soil to make sure that you know, we're not going short on those essential vitamins and minerals. So with that intro, I'll show you what's going on the plot, and I'll try and show you just some of the management issues that we've got, and yeah, for anybody that's also growing year round. So let's get on. So as always, we'll start in the polytunnel, kind of engine room of the plot, if you like. So let's start here. So these are some of my late brassicas, which will overwinter, and there's a big mix of these. I'm not going to go into the details because I do that in a week or so's time when I do a what am I sowing and growing video. But this is essential if you want to be self-sufficient, is growing small plants over winter for an early harvest next year. These are spares. These are carrots. So again, these will overwinter, and we'll be picking these in kind of January, February, March time. And there's more carrots here. There's more carrots scattered around the place and at home. We've got some salad rocket here. We've got a whole range of brassicas interplanted with radishes. And these, you know, brassicas, you don't need brassicas to be in a polytunnel. But there are a few advantages. One is that when it's just really foul outside, it's really nice to be able to come and harvest from here. And the other is just how tender the leaves are. When you grow them outside, they can get a bit tough in the heart of winter, whereas these polytunnel ones, because they're just not exposed to all that wind and rain and snow and everything, they're just a lot, you know, the leaves are just lovely, basically, and it's kind of worth growing them just for that very purpose. The final thing is, because they're planted so late in the season, they don't bolt quite as early. So I'm still eating these leaves in the polytunnel right up to May, and by then all my early brassicas that I'll be overwintering and planting in sort of February time, they're all ready then, and so I get a full continuity of brassica leaves, and that's really important to me. So obviously there's some curly kale, those are reflex, I particularly like those over winter. And some Cavolo Neros, these littler ones, these are dazzling blue kale, and then some more rocket, and then salads, and all of these big leaves now, they all need to come off. So all I want are these small centre leaves, and you know, that just reduces the disease. And just, you know, I don't need these leaves yet. I don't need these polytunnel salads yet. I want them for November, December and January really. Those are the 3 months. So it's all about managing these plants so that they're really healthy at that time of year. I've got plenty of other lettuces in the ground to eat right now. So anyway, these are Roxy. These are Bijou, and these are gorgeous, aren't they? And you can see lots of little volunteer tomatoes, and I might actually pot some of those up. And then down here, one of the hardiest lettuces, Freckles. That's a particular favourite. And again, you know, these need picking hard. You don't want to be leaving them to grow into massive lettuces. You know, keep on managing them. And then up here on my little bench, I've got spares. So these are all spare lettuces, although some of them are going to get planted out. So these, for example, will get planted probably today. I might show you those. And then this is another, these are my biggest cabbages, spring cabbages. So these will get potted on and then planted out later on in the season. And I've got quite a few varieties of different things here. So I've got cabbages and calabrese, all sorts of stuff. And another one of my salad beds, this is Grenoble Red. And you can see why I need spares, because we are losing some. And this always happens, and it's kind of unclear why, but it doesn't really matter when you've got spares. So it may be that something's just eating that. I'm not sure. Anyway, no point leaving a diseased plant in the ground. And I think I've lost 2 plants on this bed, and they've all been replanted. And then I've got my spinach. And again, I've got lots of spinach in the ground, and I've definitely got something eating. Look, so definitely a little bit of munching going on here, but it's not too bad, so I'm not worrying about it overly. These have been grown really for lovely large leaves over winter, and again, I've got spinach outside. And then the only other thing I've got really are these chili peppers, and these were outside in one of my low tunnels, and they're just not ready yet, so I've just potted them on and brought them into the polytunnel. And I've got a few more carrots. So there's the overview of the outside of my plot, and we'll start here. So here we've got lamb's lettuce, corn salad, if you like. This is great in January and February time when the other lettuces have stalled a little bit, and we just keep it under this because it just provides a little bit of shelter from, you know, the hail and the snow and the stuff like that. Bed that just needs to be cleared. There's some spring onions and some bolted lettuces there, and I've got some more corn salad just to go in there when I get a chance. Two lovely beds of Grenoble Red. This is one of the beds that we're harvesting. Calabrese that we've pretty much finished, just growing for side shoots because we've nothing to go in this outside bed now. So this will wait until probably March time before this gets replanted. And there's a few red cabbages here that are coming on nicely, and they'll be ready probably December, January. We've just cleared this bed of beetroot. We've only got a couple of beds still planted with beetroot. Almost all of our beetroot is now harvested and heading for store. This is watermelon radish. It's a winter radish, and it's particularly good for the leaves. Obviously the radish is nice as well, but these leaves are lovely and they work really well in the smoothie mixes. And then that bed was peppers on the last tour, and it's now carrots, and the green is just, well, it's this cloth here which I use just to keep the ground moist while I'm trying to get those carrots to germinate. And those carrots hopefully will be ready April, May time. Two beds of chard. This needs cutting back a bit now because there's a lot of damaged leaves here. These are not going to be edible, so I'm going to cut this back, this bed, let it regrow, whilst we concentrate on eating from this bed and the one I'll show you in a minute. So this is a spinach bed that we should in theory be eating from for many, many months, but unfortunately it's going to seed. And I actually had a lot of problems with the plug plants going to seed. I'm not really sure why. I think they were on the windowsill and just got too warm, but that one's going to seed as well. So I suspect that this bed is not going to last very long, which is a kind of shame. Some more chard here. We've got a bed of kohlrabi. It should be ready around Christmas time. Another lovely bed of Grenoble red lettuce, and that really needs picking, doesn't it? I mentioned when I was in the polytunnel that we plant super early brassicas in sort of February time, and then we put them under one of those low tunnels, and they're ready for May to take over from the polytunnel brassicas. And these are those same plants, and we're still eating them now, so they won't last much longer. But yeah, it's kind of remarkable just how amazing brassicas are, and just the huge harvest that you get off them. This is Hungry Gap Kale. Well, it's a massive kale, but lovely kind of cabbage-like leaves once you get the white fly off them. And then just a little bed of sprouts there. And this is the brassica bed for next year, and it's currently full of field beans, and the net is on just to keep all that incredible number of leaves off because it's underneath a massive tree. But this is how we harvest the field beans. We just pinch the tips out like that, and that's what we'll be eating as a kind of spinach substitute. And people like it in salads, and it's especially good in smoothie mixes, but you can stir fry with it as well. And it's important with these plants to keep them low. You don't want them growing up like this. You just keep on pinching them out and letting them throw up new shoots from the bottom. And we're not quite picking this one aggressively enough at the moment, so it needs a good cut, and any spares go to the chickens. So this is a bed I only planted a week and a bit ago, and this is Red Kitten, and it's growing pretty slowly, I might say, but yeah, that's not too bad. At least it's not going to seed. It needs a bit of water. Lovely bed of strawberries. Just cut down the asparagus, and it always pains me to see a bed going to waste all the way through winter, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant spring onions down the centre of it. They're very shallow rooted and they'll be harvested by the time we let the asparagus grow, the asparagus ferns grow. So I think that'll work quite well as an interplant. And there's another bed of spring onions here, and this is those are stir-on, which actually are a main crop onion, but we're growing these for spring onions. And then here we've got tough ball, which is an overwintering onion, and stir-on again being grown just in little clumps of 3 as an overwintering onion. So hopefully those are going to be harvested sort of May, June time, depending on when we run out of stored onions. And here is one of our existing salad beds that we're harvesting, interplanted with a lot of spring onions, but looking pretty gorgeous. And we've got a bed of winter marvel, and those are actually going to grow into mature plants to be eaten in December and January, when a lot of the other lettuces start to slow down, because they stand in the ground pretty well and they can take a very hard frost. So they're in this cold frame, so they'll get a little bit of protection. And we've just taken the kind of dying leaves off these beetroot, because we've harvested sacks of beetroot, golden beetroot and red beetroot, for store, but we don't really like touching the stuff in store until January, and so we just leave some beetroot in the ground until then, and it looks lovely, doesn't it, like this? And it's easy to keep an eye on it and kind of manage our harvest levels. We've got another bed of golden beetroot just like this one. Yeah, so we're munching this one until December time, or the end of December hopefully. And then we've got 2 beds of Radicchio. This one I think is Caesar, which isn't doing so well, and this one is Palmarosa, which is doing better, but we're not that bothered because we don't actually want these plants until kind of December time, so we should have some lovely hearts by then, because at the moment we've got an abundance of salads. It's only really in December and January that things slow down, and these Radicchio hearts provide lots of lovely colour and crunch to the salad mixes, which tend not to be really that colourful and crunchy. Need a bit of weeding though. And then yet another salad bed. This is Novara. It's one of my favourite lettuces, but it's not the hardiest over winter, so this bed again will probably be picked and gone by December. And then Grenoble Red, super hardy, and that'll carry on. And stacks and stacks and stacks of spring onions in here. And this is what's left of our amazing New Zealand spinach bed. Probably only 1 more week's harvest out of this, because it truly is a summer favourite. By then hopefully we'll have plenty of true spinach, and next to it is a bed of true spinach. This is Red Kitten, it's coming on quite nicely. And this is what's left of our summer carrots, and we're not harvesting these at the moment. These are Mokum, and apparently they stand reasonably well in the ground, although they're growing really big, and obviously some of them will be splitting, but that's the case with all of our carrots at the moment, splitting because it's just been so wet. But these should be free of carrot root fly, and so that's why we're leaving those. And then we've got some spring cabbages here. These are all January Kings. They're doing reasonably well. And then a few more sprouts and kales down here, some more spring onions, and just a few odd beetroot squeezed in. And then these are the oca, and I've grown these in containers because they do most of their growing kind of in the last 2 or 3 weeks just before they finish, and so if you can keep them frost free just for those last few weeks you get a much better harvest. So being in containers, I can pop them in the polytunnel when frost threatens and just keep them going. And I'm quite excited by this harvest. They're a lovely little crunchy tuber. Obviously nowhere near as prolific as potatoes, but really nice. They're nice in salads, but you can use them sort of mashed up or roasted, all sorts of different ways. And since I did my last video, I've added 2 IBC tanks to the plot. This was where I did all my compost finishing and made a huge amount of compost in that area, but water is more valuable. The strategy on this site is to gradually move to only using rainwater, so no tap water at all apart from in droughts. But in particular, this is just to really get me through early spring, just to take the pressure off worrying whether the water is going to be switched on or not in spring. And that makes a big difference, having that reserve of 2 cubic metres, and they are now full. It's rained so much in autumn that I managed to get them full, so that's kind of amazing. So here's the overview of Debbie's plot. We've done a lot more this year to try and make sure that every bed is planted for winter. We're big believers in having living roots in the ground all year round, and thick mulches and all that sort of thing. So here we've got Cabbages, and these are looking good, but just as exciting. There's lots of side shoots coming on these plants, and so that's really good. So we'll be picking some of these today. Some strawberries, and these are Romanesco cauliflowers, and these are looking great, and I suspect if I rummage around in there you'll be able to see, hopefully, the Romanesco cauliflower is just starting to form, so they're going to be great in November probably. And that's really nice because just as the Cabbages is finished, the Romanesco cauliflower kicks in. Her beds are looking okay. Then we've got some more Cabbages here and some Chinese cabbages and more herbs. And I've got some lovely salad rocket here and some more what do you call these? Anyway, I talked about them earlier. I've just forgotten what they're called for a minute. Radicchio. I'm not sure which varieties these are, but maybe there's a mix of the two, Caesar and Palo Rosa. And wow, Debbie was saying that she didn't have very many beans on here, but actually it looks like quite a lot to me, and actually quite nice little haricot beans. They just look so pretty. And then all the way down here, these are purple sprouting broccoli for spring. And then underneath that little cover, which was on just to provide a little bit of protection from the wind, we've got overwintering onions. And then down there, I think we have cauliflowers. Finally, some perennial kales in here, which look really rubbish at the moment, but perennial kales kind of come into their own over winter. We're on Jennie's plot now. We've got some Brabants. Most of the other apples are now on the floor. They all had grubs in them. And we've got some amazing pears. These are my favourite Concord. Absolutely gorgeous. And again, they're all falling on the floor, so we're leaving these for the birds. They make a good job of clearing them up. These are the Golden Delicious. We haven't eaten a single one of these this year, but the discoveries on here were amazing. And then this is the main Brassica bed. It's kind of my pride and joy when I look at this bed. Absolutely fabulous sprouts. We've got a mix of early and lates, and we've been eating sprouts for a month or so now, And then we've got these late ones still coming. Lots and lots of lovely red cabbages as well. And just everywhere I look, there's just gorgeous sprout plants. I love it. And we absolutely love the sprout tops as well. And these are just starting to form now. Gorgeous tender leaves. And we actually grow plants specifically for sprout plants specifically for the leaves and the tops rather than the sprouts. We mainly do that earlier in the season, but just look at all these sprout tops. That one's pretty close to ready actually. And then we've got our purple sprouting broccolis. There's 2 rows in there. One is earlies and one's lates. Fantastic. Lots of red cabbages coming on. So these are our late season ones, so hopefully these will be ready sort of December time, and then I'll keep through to March probably. And then spring cabbages here, these are January Kings, and then these are winter cauliflowers. So again, we're going to have some really fantastic winter food. Just saving some of these beans now, just for next year. We're not harvesting anymore really, although actually they look okay, don't they? So maybe we'll get just a few more off here. And then these 2 beds are our strawberry beds, but we had garlic down the centres of them. And maybe actually we'll put shallots down the centre of them this year. So come November time, all of these carrots need to be harvested. And these really need to be harvested now. I'll just take a couple out, see what they look like. This is the trouble. They're all a bit big. We're just too many carrots really, and we've just got a lot of them splitting. We just can't pick them kind of quickly enough, and they're just not good enough to store. So you know, there's only so many carrots you can eat fresh really. Got to manage my carrot timings a bit better next year. So again, this is a strawberry bed, but now it's a carrot bed, and also lots of spring onions in it. But I mean, these carrots are just ridiculous. These are autumn king. Crazy. And then another nice little kale bed. Looks a bit scrappy at the moment, but now's the time for kale to come into its own. One of the beans being left for seed. And then this was the squash bed. 24 lovely crown prince squash, and we've just replanted this with field beans. They're the same as the one on my plot, but these are planted later. Really, this is the right time to plant them. You don't want them to grow too big, because you're only harvesting just the tips really. So these will be ready for harvest before the end of this month, and then that harvest will continue all the way through until we're ready to plant brassicas on this bed, and that will be in April time, beginning of April, and we'll be harvesting these field beans continuously. And these are just the stepping stones for me and Jennie and Debbie when we're doing the harvesting. We've decided not to bother with rows, because you just don't need a whole row. You can reach everything from a stepping stone. And so we'll be doing the same thing on here. Broad beans at that end, garlic at this end. Broad beans do particularly well with the shade from the tree, from the hedge rather. So they're not really that bothered by it. I couldn't really see much of a difference between the stuff right at the far end and sort of in the middle last year. Whereas the garlic really needs full sun, so lots of garlic and broad beans going in there. And there's a few of the Crown Prince squash. The rest of them are down on the floor. And then to complement the sprouts, we've got the colettes. And there's multiple varieties of these here as well, so that we get a really nice succession. And this is just my favourite veg. I just really love these little colette bunches. And if you've not eaten these before, you just break them off like that, and that's kind of what you eat. That lovely little bunch of kale leaves, and they're actually a cross between kale and a sprout, and they're super healthy and super tasty. And ideally you would pick them when they're a little bit tighter like that, but actually, you know, that's how the shops sell them anyway, when they're tighter like that. But I just love them like this. They're just absolutely gorgeous, aren't they? And in every gap there's more red cabbages, all sorts of different sizes, little baby ones, loads and loads. And then these are the different varieties, so these are much later, and hopefully we'll still be eating these in kind of March time really. So really pleased with the way these are going. And again, as you see here, look, some of them are still really small and tight. There's plenty of growing still to come on all of these. There's loads and loads and loads of them. And then the final thing really on this plot is these amazing marathon calabrese, which we've literally been eating. I know everybody's fed up with me talking about this, but it's just so amazing. We're still getting side shoots off these. We picked the main heads in June, and yeah, we've just been eating side shoots since then. This sort of number off, I mean, they're getting smaller, but every single plant is giving us, you know, 3 or 4 lovely side shoots. And the side shoots were kind of that sort of size of my hand in summer, but these are still welcome. So it's just been an amazing experiment, the way that we prepared this bed, and I'll talk about that in another video next year when it's time to prepare your beds. But basically, grow field beans and then plant your brassicas into there and leave the roots chock full of nitrogen. Blend with a bit of bad news. These are the leeks. About half of the leeks went to seed, and these are the ones that went to seed. We just really haven't got much use for those. The other half we've harvested and taken home, and they're either in soups or being frozen. We're in that bed there, and so that just means more broad beans, which are a firm favourite in spring. Today's harvest, or at least the start of it. So there's some really lovely salads and some gorgeous cucumbers, and then we've got true spinach, lots of that, and last bits of New Zealand spinach, really lovely chard, 3 of those, and then smoothie mixes. And the smoothie mixes are so good at this time of year. I think we've got about 10 different types of leaves in those. And this is the last bit of the harvest. These are our last tomatoes, just picked for a passata sauce. And then we've got mixed brassicas, all sorts of different mixes. Where most of them have got leeks in them as well. Cabbage leaves, sprouts, colettes, all sorts of different stuff. Lovely calabrese. And then we've got our green pepper and chilli mixes. And then just some cooking mixes. So there's some shallots, carrots, potatoes, onions, beetroot in these. And then a few red peppers and a courgette. And another roast veg mix. So pretty pleased with that. So we were just finishing and it started raining, so that's just perfect timing. So we've just finished the harvest as well, and we're going to get that bagged up at home and washed and everything, and I'll see you soon.